Okay, welcome.
Bienvenidos.
Bienvenidos a Montana. First, we're going to start off with a musical selection from David Roberts and Ali Rosenblatt. So, go ahead.
Primero vamos a comenzar con música.
Primero vamos a comenzar con música. Bienvenidos todos y ojalá la disfruten.
Yeah, this is a song about recent events in Colombia. It's called "Coke is the Drink of the Death Squads." Do you translate? Translation? No, that's okay. You can hear it. I'm telling you, you can hear it. Hopefully it's true. Coke came to Colombia, seeking lower wages. They got just what they came for. But as we turn the pages, we find the workers do not like the sound of their children's hungry cries. So they said, we'll join the union. They began to organize. So Coke called up a terrorist group called the AUC. Said, we've got some problems at the factory. The AUC went to the plant, killed 2 union men, told the rest, you leave the union, or we'll be back again. Well, Coke did not complain about this dirty deed. Why give workers higher wages when Coke is all they really need? They only AUC said thanks, without you we'd go broke. And to show our appreciation, here's 100 cases of Coke. The baby drinks it in his bottle and the water ain't no good. The dog drinks it, but he don't know if he should. Some folks say it's the nectar of the gods, but Coke is the drink of the death squads. Coke is the drink of the death squads. That's the chorus, if you want to sing with us. Well, these workers wouldn't take this situation lying down. Some went up to Georgia, said, look what's happened to our town. You American workers get downsized, as for us we just get shot. And those of us who live, our teeth begin to rot. 'Cause the baby drinks it in his bottle and the water ain't no good. The dog drinks it, but he don't know if he should. Some folks say it's the nectar of the gods, but Coke is the drink of the death squads. What's it? Coke is the drink of the death squads. The situation, what are you gonna do? 'Cause the death squads run Colombia and they're paid by me and you. We can let Coke rule the world, see what future that will bring. Or we can drink juice and smash the state, now that's the real thing. 'Cause the baby drinks it in his bottle and the water ain't no good. The dog drinks it, but he don't know if he should. Some folks say it's the nectar of the gods, but Coke is the drink of the death squads. Coke is the drink of the death squads.
Thank you, David and Ali. Welcome to the Global Justice Action Summit panel entitled Labor Rights, Organizing in a World of Death Squads, Privatization, and Corporate Lawyers. Our first speaker today is from Colombia, and there is little doubt that Colombia is the most dangerous place in the world to exercise the right to form and to join labor unions. The International Confederation of Free Trade Unions estimated in the year 2001 over 160 Colombian trade unionists were murdered, all of them committed by the paramilitary forces referenced in David Roddick's song, who are closely aligned with the armed forces of the Colombian government. The climate of threats, intimidation, and violence against union members is intense. The paramilitary forces have especially targeted public sector workers who are resisting privatization of public services. Our first speaker today has received a death threat for his work in standing up for the rights of public sector workers. Jose Luis Cortes is the General Secretary of the Yumba Municipal Workers Union. Yumba is a small industrial city just north of Cali, which is located in the southwestern part of Colombia. Jose Luis is also on the executive committee of FENALTRAS, the Federation of State Union Employees. Please give a warm welcome to Compañero Jose Luis Cortes.
Muchas gracias por la invitación y poder denunciar lo que pasa en mi país.
I was busy trying to figure out the microphones. But basically he said, I'm very happy to be here and especially to be able to tell you about the dire conditions in my country. ¿Es lo que dijo?
De verdad que traspaso fronteras para proteger mi vida.
And in reality, traspaso fronteras. ¿Qué quieres decir con traspaso?
In reality, he's had to leave to protect his
That he's putting his life on the line by crossing frontiers. Borders.
Acudimos hoy a manifestar que el movimiento sindical de Colombia hemos perdido en lo que va corrido del año 180 trabajadores.
It's very sad for me to say that in what goes in the year 2002, we have already lost 180 workers.
Ahora en este nuevo siglo, los ruidos de la guerra, cada vez más intensos, más agudos, nos dejan alrededor de un reguero de muertos a nombre del remolino neoliberal.
It's very poetic what he's saying. He says, the sounds of war, each time more intense, more profound, leave us with a scattering of death in the name of the neoliberal spiral. The globalist hurricane of this devastation.
El Fondo Monetario Internacional y la Banca Mundial y el Plan Colombia son nuestros peores enemigos en nuestro país, producto de la ayuda del gobierno norteamericano.
The IMF, the World Bank, and the Plan Colombia is our worst enemy, and it is funded by the United States.
El Plan Colombia, para hacer una síntesis, es un modelo guerrerista que ha acabado con defensores de derechos humanos, ha acabado con líderes cívicos y populares, ha desplazado a por lo menos 80,000 campesinos de sus tierras.
Plan Colombia is our worst enemy. So far, it has destroyed, killed civil rights movement leaders. It has destroyed public leaders, public employees, leaders, and it has killed 80,000 peasants, workers.
De las recomendaciones diseñadas por un selecto de grupos de estadounidenses en los 80 para Centroamérica y en los 90 para América del Sur, pasamos por obra y gracia del Espíritu del Norte al famoso Plan Colombia, que dicho sea de paso, se basa en el principio denominador e imperialista de los Estados Unidos y de otras grandes potencias mundiales: más militarización, más entrenamiento a la fuerza pública, más armamento, más explotación de los recursos naturales, más inversión extranjera, más megaproyectos y multinacionales en el país.
Of the recommendations designed by a select group of United Statesians in the 80s for Central America and in the 90s for South America, we pass by, it's a part of a prayer, the work and grace of the Spirit of the North, the famous Columbia Plan, that it is based on the dominating and imperialistic principle of the United States and of other great powers of the world. More militarization, more training to the public forces, more more weapons, more exploitation of natural resources, more foreign investment, more mega projects and multinationals in our country.
Cuando el Estado es el responsable de una política de exterminio en la que el uso del terror es la principal herramienta, estamos hablando del terrorismo de Estado, agenciado por los Estados Unidos en lo ideológico, económico, político y militar. En la Escuela de las Américas se han formado 10,000 militares colombianos. Estadísticas en Colombia: existen 24 millones de pobres, de los cuales 8,000 son indígenas.
When the state is responsible for a politics of extermination in which terror is the main weapon, we are talking about a state terrorism. Nurtured by the United States in its ideology, economy, politics, and military. In the School of the Americas, they have 10,000 military people have been formed, of which 8 million, that 8,000 people have been formed and they have killed 24 million han matado. 24 million people have been displaced, and out of that, 8 million are indigenous people.
Hay un desempleo del 21%, hay un subempleo del 60%, el 17% de los empleos son temporales, el 2% de los empleos es medio estable. Se han liquidado más de 600 empresas, 100 empresas están en reestructuración, 25 registros mercantiles se encuentran cancelados. 46% de la deuda externa del precio interno bruto se está importando capital neto para amortiguar la deuda.
¿Qué quiere decir?
Registrar, anotar, pagar, amortiguar.
There is an unemployment of 21%, an underemployment of 60%, 17% of jobs are only temporary, 2% of employment is half stable. 600 companies have gone bankrupt. 100 companies are in the process of restructuration. 25% of the debt for commerce is canceled. ¿Y esto qué? 46. The foreign debt right now is 46%.
Todo esto que les acabo de manifestar es producto del modelo neoliberal. Todo esto es producto de los famosos préstamos que Estados Unidos hace a los pequeños países. Todo esto es producto de una política cambiaria. Todo esto es producto de una corrupción que día a día se carcome o quiere acabar con mi país.
All of this is a product of neoliberalist policies. It's a product of transnationalism and globalization. It's a product of the United States imperialism. In other words, everything is the politics that wants to finish with my country.
Termino diciendo que los modelos han causado daño en Argentina, el efecto tango, en Brasil, el efecto samba, en Ecuador, el efecto Fujimori, y en Colombia vamos a tener el efecto cumbia, donde vamos a tener de pronto más muertos que en los países que le acabo de nombrar.
All this has resulted in Argentina in the tango effect, in Brazil in the samba effect, in Ecuador in the Fujimori effect. In Colombia, we're going to end up with the cumbia effect, where there will be more deaths than in the three recent places that I just mentioned combined.
A los trabajadores, al pueblo no le interesa la guerra. No le interesa la guerra sino la paz. La guerra le interesa a quienes ejecutan la maldad y el atropello contra los seres humanos. Muchas gracias.
Workers of the people are not interested in war, but peace. The war only interests those who execute evil and run over the rights of human beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Luis Wilfredo Barrios, exemplifies the enduring struggle of public sector trade unions in El Salvador. With more than 20 years of experience as a labor leader in the telecommunications sector, he has left an indelible mark on the Salvadoran social movement and continues to help lead the militant SUTEL union. Wilfredo first became immersed in the Salvadoran labor movement when he began to work for the public telephone utility in 1980. He was swept up in the union organizing that was happening at the time, and when the military occupied the telephone utility, he knew there was no turning back. With the successful formation of ASTEL, the Salvadoran Association of Telecommunication Workers, in 1984, Wilfredo quickly moved through the ranks to become Secretary General in 1988, a position he held until 1998. He also was elected Secretary General of the Independent Unions Association, FACES, in 1990. In 1984, Wilfredo joined the Farabunda Marti Front for National Liberation, the FMLN, and was involved in the armed struggle against the right-wing government for most of the 1980s. In the end, it was decided that his efforts were best put in keeping the labor movement alive within the armed struggle. With the privatization of the telephone utility in 1997, Wilfredo was central in helping organize the new SUTEL union, of which he currently is the president. Please give a warm welcome to Compañero Wilfredo Barrios.
Esto de la violación a los derechos humanos viene desde hace más de 500 años.
The violation against human rights is older than 500 years.
Y por cierto, en nuestros países, en América, hubo un personaje que cometió un error de término con nuestros aborígenes o indígenas.
And in our history, there was a person that committed a huge error as far as our indigenous people go.
Y su primera violación fue cuando vio a las Américas llamarles a nuestros aborígenes o indígenas indios, pensando que había llegado a la India.
And the first mistake is calling the Americas America and calling the people of that continent Indians, because he thought that he had arrived in India.
Ojalá y no se haya equivocado y por ir a China nos hayamos llamado chinos.
And it's a good thing that he didn't think he was going to China. Otherwise, we would have been called Chinos, Chinese.
Violaron, saquearon y violentaron todos los derechos humanos que tenían nuestros aborígenes y indígenas. Violaron a nuestras mujeres, robaron nuestras riquezas como el oro, la plata, la cultura y la etnia.
They violated and sacked and exploited our natural resources. They violated and exploited our women, our culture, and our ethnicity.
Ante esta violación, nuestros países quedaron sumamente pobres en su riqueza natural, con únicamente sus ríos, lagos y bosques.
Under these circumstances, our countries have been sapped and exploited in their natural resources, and we have been left with little, except we have now our lakes, our rivers, our water.
Y por supuesto algo que dignifica al hombre o al ser humano, como es su fuerza de trabajo.
And of course, something that dignifies the human being, which is the strength of his work.
En nuestro país, El Salvador y Centroamérica, después de la colonización se continuó violentando los derechos humanos en el aspecto de quitarle el trabajo, de dañar el medio ambiente, de contaminar los ríos y los lagos.
And of course, in El Salvador and the rest of Central America, the exploitation and violation continued even after the conquest. The exploitation of our work, the exploitation of our natural resources, and the contamination of our rivers and waters.
Ante esa situación, en nuestro país, El Salvador entró en una guerra civil por 12 años para tratar de cambiar y reestructurar todas esas causas injustas y explotaciones hacia las grandes mayorías.
And as a consequence of that continued exploitation, my country, El Salvador, went to war for 12 years in order to be able to change the situation and restructure the way things were.
Esta guerra civil duró alrededor de 12 años, en la cual se involucraron las diferentes o participaron diferentes sectores de la vida nacional.
As I said, this war lasted about 12 years, and in this war, the different sectors of the country were integrated.
Participaron estudiantes, campesinos, obreros, maestros, etc.
In this war, students, peasants, farmers, workers, teachers participated in the conflict.
Queríamos cambios, queríamos justicia. A finales en los años de 1992, los Estados Unidos y el gobierno de la República de El Salvador cedieron para sentarse a negociar los acuerdos de paz.
We wanted change, we wanted justice. And in 1992, the United States and the government of El Salvador ceded and said that they would go ahead and sign the peace accords.
El sueño dorado de todos los sectores de la vida nacional era la participación en las grandes decisiones políticas y económicas de nuestro país, una justicia social para todos, y precisamente en esos acuerdos surgieron un foro socioeconómico en el cual se discutiría toda la problemática del sector laboral, trabajador, empresa privada y el gobierno.
The golden dream of my people was to be able to participate in the social and economic decisions of my country. And so we wanted social justice. And in the Accords gives the structuring or forms this commission that the three sectors of the country, the political sector, the economic sector, and the people sector, will join together to make decisions. And this was part of the peace accords, and it was signed.
Todo el mundo dijo, bueno, se respetarán los derechos humanos, la Constitución de la República, los tratados de libre, los convenios internacionales de la OIT, en el cual contempla el respeto a los derechos humanos.
Y lo que quería hacer.
Derechos humanos. ¿Qué dijiste?
I'm sorry. And within these accords, within this commission, everybody was very happy because it was agreed that human rights was going to be respected, that the Constitution was going to be respected, and the international workers' unions would be respected.
Se nos manejó de que las grandes mayorías y los trabajadores ya no iban a tener la necesidad de salir a las calles y llevar a cabo huelgas para lograr proteger sus derechos y sus intereses.
And everybody was very happy because they thought that the people and the workers would not have to go to the streets in order to demand their rights and for their rights to be upheld.
Ya en las pláticas y las negociaciones, en el foro de concertación, nos fuimos dando cuenta que de nuevo los neoliberalistas comenzaban a burlarse de los más de 100,000 muertos y desaparecidos que dejó la guerra civil en El Salvador.
Afterwards, once the commission was formed and after a little time had passed, we would sit with the neoliberalists and we realized that they were making fun of the 100,000 people that were killed during the struggle.
Comenzamos a escuchar términos nuevos como privatización, modernización, reingeniería, que no era más que la venta de los patrimonios nacionales de nuestro país.
And we began to hear new terms such as privatization, modernization, re-engineering, in short, sale of the patrimony of our country.
Comenzaron a haber despidos masivos, vendieron la compañía telefónica, la distribución de la energía eléctrica y otros rubros que como riqueza tenía el pueblo salvadoreño.
There began to be massive unemployment, in other words, massive when people lose their jobs. The telephone was privatized, the electricity was privatized.
Aquí se comenzaron a perder las prestaciones sociales, se redujo muy grandemente el salario de los trabajadores, se introdujeron medidas infrahumanas en fábricas como las maquilas.
And so we saw a reduction in social benefits, we saw a reduction in our salaries, and we saw the inhuman conditions of the assembly plants, the maquila.
En este momento, en los diferentes centros de trabajo, es considerado un delito organizarse en sindicato. Es considerado un delito enfermarse para pedir permiso y ir al hospital. Es considerado, en el caso de la mujer, salir embarazada o preñada, porque es inmediatamente despedida del centro de trabajo.
Right now, in these work centers, it is against the law to organize. It is against the law to get sick. For women, the moment they get pregnant, they lose their jobs.
También el gobierno de la República, cada año hay un decreto ejecutivo en el cual despiden 10.000, 15.000 empleados públicos, reitero, cada año, con la intención de crear todo un ejército de mano de obra barata.
Right now, each year there is a presidential decree that reduces the workforce from about 10,000 to 15,000 people. I repeat, each year 10,000 to 15,000 people lose their jobs by presidential decree. And all this to form an unemployed workforce.
Esto significa que el proyecto gubernamental va de cara a crear en el país toda una zona de llamadas zonas francas o fábricas de las maquilas, en el cual se pretende sostener al país con la mano de obra barata.
And all of this is a governmental project to create a zone of unemployment where the assembly plants, the maquila, can go in and hire cheap labor.
El salario mínimo que se da a los trabajadores y trabajadoras en estas fábricas anda alrededor de los $120 mensuales. Significa que con los descuentos para el seguro y otros aspectos del gobierno viene llegando alrededor de los menos de los $100.
This means that the minimum wage per month is about $120, and once you take away Social Security and other fees, a worker ends up with from $80 to $100 a month.
En el caso de las compañías ya privatizadas, se dio todo lo contrario de lo anunciado por el gobierno. En lugar de bajar las tarifas, subieron enormemente. La población está perdiendo un servicio social y, por supuesto, los despidos masivos en estas compañías hoy privatizadas.
What's happening right now with the privatized companies is all the contrary. Instead of fees going down, they've gone up. There's been massive, when people are laid off, massive layoffs right now.
Lo que quiero decirles a ustedes acá, que todas aquellas causas de explotación y de injusticia que nos llevaron a una guerra civil de más de 12 años, en el cual actuaron también los escuadrones de la muerte, de nuevo, después de los acuerdos de paz, comienzan a originarse esas causas que nos llevaron a la guerra.
What I want to say today to you here is that those causes of injustice that led us to that civil war, to that war of 12 years, those that included the death squads, and after the peace accords, we are headed in the same direction.
Y esto, por si fuera poco, Hoy se nos está hablando y estamos escuchando en Centroamérica, en especial en Salvador, de algo llamado como el ALCA, de algo llamado como los Tratados de Libre Comercio de América del Norte, de algo llamado como la vía rápida, conocido en sus siglas en inglés Fast Track, que ahí viene atropellando los derechos humanos y laborales.
Eso que es el Tratado de Libre Comercio para la América del Norte. Algo que es para toda la...
And as if this were little, there's already talk about furthering of NAFTA, the ALCA, NAFTA, and the fast track, which is being talked about in all of South America, but especially right now in El Salvador.
De alguna manera ya esto nos está afectando y violentando nuestros derechos. Por ejemplo, el incremento de las maquilas en nuestros países. También ya estamos consumiendo productos transgénicos o semillas manipuladas genéticamente hablando.
This is already affecting us in many ways. In addition to violating our human rights, there is already an increase in these inhuman conditions in the maquila. Plus, we are already eating seeds, GMOs, that is harming our health.
Quiero poner un ejemplo bien claro, y eso le sucedió a México y hoy a Centroamérica. En el intercambio de nuestros productos, el maíz de calidad de Centroamérica y Suramérica con los Estados Unidos nos está enviando el maíz de forraje de ganado.
I'll tell you what happened in Mexico, and now is happening to El Salvador and the rest of South America, is that Mexico and the rest of us used to have corn of quality. And right now what's happening is that the United States is sending us the corn that they use here to feed cattle.
Cabe preguntarse cómo se nos ve a estos países del tercer mundo por parte de los países desarrollados y civilizados. ¿Nos verán como animales si nos están enviando productos de forraje de ganado?
So the question we have to ask ourselves is, well, how are we seen? How do the countries of the North, supposedly the civilized and developed countries, see us if they are sending to us the food that they give their animals?
También estamos saliendo ya afectados y preocupándonos más. Pensábamos que hasta ahí llegaba lo del NAFTA. Y resulta que ya en Centroamérica se está preparando un modelo específico, otro ALCA, otro NAFTITA, llamado CAFTA.
And as if this weren't enough, now we're also worried that there is another little NAFTA. And this model is called, ¿cómo dijiste? CAFTA.
Es un tratado de libre comercio para Centroamérica.
So it's a NAFTA for Central America.
Esta viene pero muy parecida al Tratado de Libre Comercio para América del Norte, en el cual las grandes corporaciones tienen el poder por sobre las repúblicas o los pueblos. Estos nuestros países o nuestros gobiernos pierden su soberanía. En el capítulo 11 de estos tratados se manifiesta que las corporaciones pueden demandar a los pueblos o a los gobiernos si ellos consideran que se les está violentando alguna cláusula.
And included in this GAFTA is Chapter 11, where where corporations would be above individual governments, and that governments basically lose their sovereignty. Because if a corporation believes that in some way a government is violating one of their rights or is not letting them do what they want to do, they can sue that government.
Como un ejemplo, en un estado mexicano, San Luis Potosí, Metalclad, una corporación estadounidense, ha llevado a juicio a este estado porque no le ha permitido crear o construir un depósito de material tóxico.
Let's take the example of San Luis Potosí in Mexico right now, where a U.S. corporation sued the state government of San Luis Potosí because the state did not allow a toxic waste dump to be constructed.
Y una compañía llamada Ethyl Corporation de los Estados Unidos demandó al Estado canadiense por $13 millones por prohibirle distribuir una especie de aditivo para combustible que es muy dañino al sistema nervioso para el ser humano.
And in Canada, another U.S. corporation, Indeed Corporation, sued a state in Canada or the sued the Canadian government because it prohibited the distribution of a fuel additive that is very dangerous, harmful to the human nervous system.
Bueno, esa es muchas de las situaciones por las cuales en América Latina, en Centroamérica y en mi país estamos pasando. Y hay cada vez más actividades en las cuales estamos tratando de parar estas medidas neoliberales.
So that's our situation right now in Latin America, in Central America, and in El Salvador. And more there's activity to stop this devastation.
Ya se está hablando de querer privatizar o vender la salud y por supuesto un líquido muy vital para el ser humano como es el agua. La salud.
I made a mistake in last time. There's more activity to increase this, the NAFTA. Right now there is a huge impulse in El Salvador to privatize health and to privatize water.
¿Qué es lo que nos va quedando ya de esos pocos recursos? Déjenme decirles que no podemos decir que tenemos el recurso natural del agua como los ríos y los lagos, porque a estas alturas del 100% de ríos y lagos, únicamente el 7% es pura. El resto sumamente contaminado.
So what remains of the huge amount of natural resources that we used to have? Right now, of the lakes and the rivers, only 7% is non-contaminated, and the rest is contaminated.
De nuestros bosques o zonas verdes únicamente funciona el 3%. Y lo único que nos va quedando es algo muy rico, nuestra dignidad y nuestra fuerza de trabajo, que lo vamos a defender, por supuesto, en alianza y en unidad con todos ustedes.
In our forests and green areas, we only have a 3% of what used to be. So what do we have? We have our dignity, and we have the strength of our work, and the ability to form alliances and unions with people such as yourselves.
Mi llamado final sería de que le demos el valor a todas las cosas de la naturaleza que tengamos, que la cuidemos y la protegemos, pero que también extendamos la solidaridad en el mundo, ya que el gobierno de los Estados Unidos está violentando los derechos del resto del mundo a nombre del pueblo de los Estados Unidos con sus impuestos.
I suppose my last call to you would be to give value, to value nature, and to take care of it and protect it. But just as importantly is to extend solidarity, to work together, because the US government is violating human rights everywhere in the name of its citizens. And its citizens are paying for it.
Creo que eso sería todo, esperando de que la solidaridad internacional funcione, que podamos detener el ALCA, que podamos detener el CAFTA, que nos viene atropellando a todos. Y déjenme decirles que acá ya en el pueblo de los Estados Unidos también ya está saliendo afectado. Se están perdiendo plazas en las fábricas, en las empresas, porque estas cierran y se van al otro lado de la frontera, porque la mano de obra barata ahí está.
So I have a huge hope for international solidarity movements to grow and continue in order to stop ALCA, to stop CAFTA. And I would also point out to you that that even the US citizens are losing right now, because the jobs, the cheap jobs that the corporations go and find in Central America, the US citizens are losing right now, as the corporations close down their factories here and move to the cheap labor in our countries.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias. The same forces that are obviously at work in Latin America are at work in this country as well. Maybe not as dramatically, maybe not as violently, but nevertheless, here as well. Our next speaker, Kendall, has been educated right here at the University of Montana in the field of journalism. He has worked as a journalist for over 12 years with Montana newspapers, radio, and television stations. In 1996, he became the assistant business manager of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, Local Union 44, located here in Montana. During the next 4 years, he served his union in the capacity of press secretary, lobbyist, and organizer. In 2000, he became the Montana organizer for the Communications Workers of America, CWA. Recently, Rex was involved in a successful organizing drive at the New Flyer bus manufacturing plant in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And he's also recently organized for the Montana Education Association, Montana Federation of Teachers, the steelworkers and the mechanics unions in Montana and in Kentucky. Rex serves on the board of the Montana Community Labor Alliance. So please give a warm welcome to Brother Rex Kendall.
Well, it's humbling to be on the same panel with these folks. To be with labor organizers that are willing to die for the cause, and I can't even get people to show up for a meeting. And that's kind of what I want to talk about, I guess, is some of the problems that we face here. We don't have a lot of death squads anymore. They aren't killing union organizers in this country like they used to, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't like to. I was listening to Wilfredo talking about privatization down there in El Salvador, and it just sounds like a Republican paradise. Like George Bush's wet dreams, a little boy, an unemployment pool we can create and draw from. I wanted to talk about the right to organize in this country and how it is still under sustained attack by the powers that be. In the early 30s, U.S. workers managed to secure some measure of protection and right to organize, bargain collectively, and strike through the National Labor Relations Act. The act made it unlawful for employers to interfere with, restrain, or coerce workers in the exercise of these rights. The reality, however, is that employers hire professional union busters to do all these things. Employees are spied on, harassed, pressured, lied to, threatened, suspended, fired, or deported in reprisal for their attempts to organize or bargain a contract. The problem with the act is it's a law that has no teeth and is difficult to enforce. It's meant to be corrective rather than punitive. And most corporations, most employers look at it and laugh at it. Very briefly, the way I got into this, I was a cabinet correspondent up in Helena for a couple of TV stations. During the legislature years back, I brought in some other reporters because I had worked around Montana for different networks and newspapers and television stations. And so I knew everybody, so I brought them all into my office to have a little union organizing meeting and passed out some literature from the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. At that time, they had the only people in the television industry. They had 5 people in Butte in the master control, and that was it. So they were the only ones that had any members that were actually in the broadcast business. So they're the ones that I got my literature from. I passed it out to my other reporter friends, and a couple weeks later, we all got fired. I tell this story to people that I'm trying to organize, and they go, "Well, see you later." What I also have to tell them is that this happened because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about organizing. I didn't know how to do it. All I knew is that we were making terrible wages and we were being treated very badly, and we had to do something about it. I think today when I tell people something I didn't realize at the time, and it sounds like kind of a paradox, is that if you support the union, stand up and paint that target on you. That's the safest thing you can do. Come out of the closet, come out and let people know. Give your employer direct knowledge that you support the union, and that gives you some protection, especially during an organizing drive. I didn't know that, so they could make up whatever they wanted to get rid of all of us, because I didn't tell them. So when we all get fired, and before that we had all been good employees, award-winning employees, and then all of a sudden, after a union meeting, we're all terrible employees, but it has nothing to do with the union meeting, of course. And they were surrounded by us with bullhorns and this sort of thing to embarrass them, because it's about the only thing we can do is try to embarrass these guys, because they say that they're wonderful contributors to the community. They say that they really care about their public image. I mean, they spend a lot of money pushing their public image on you guys, and that's one of their weak spots. That's what we can shine a light on these people and show them what they're really doing and how they're treating their workers. That seems to work, but it didn't in this case. The way we finally got a contract was that he had built this new television station in Helena on Carroll College property through a big grant. He gave him a lot of money. He's been doing this. His name's Jim Rogers. He owns Sunbelt Communications and owns a lot of different television stations. from Yumba, Arizona up to Alaska. So he built this on this Catholic university, and he was going to help out the students and that sort of thing with broadcasting, and it looked like this wonderful deal. But he wasn't treating his employees very well, and he wasn't giving them any wages. Their benefits sucked and this and that. And they were treated badly, and management just walked all over. So what we ended up doing is I wrote a letter to the Pope, and the Pope never replied. But I got this, when you write the letter to the Pope, if anybody wants to do this, it was great. Because it takes like a whole page just to address him, just his name alone. It goes on for paragraphs, you do this. And I told the Pope what was going on here. Now, the Pope should be a good union, good Polish Pope. I figured, this guy, and plus the Catholic Church has to come out for labor. It says right here, everything they're pro-labor, let's go. In reality, of course, that's another thing. And that's what we're talking about here, I guess, is what's on paper and what's reality. And this was another case of that. But this did work because the president of Carroll College also got a copy of this, and Jim Rogers got a copy of this. Now, whether this had something to do with it, I really don't know, but I do know that 2 weeks after I started that, we got a contract with these guys. Everything changed, and we got it. I think he was just tired of picking at it and just, throwing everything that we could think of to embarrass this guy. And it worked. A lot of times it doesn't work. I went after Continental Television Network, who has KTMF here in Missoula. They also have a station in Butte and a station in Bozeman, not a station in Bozeman, but a sales office in Bozeman, and their big mother station up in Great Falls. These guys were willing to bankrupt this company to kick us out. I've never run into anything quite like this before. They hired the same pack of union busters from the Rocky Mountain Snakes Employers Council, or Rocky Mountain States Employers Council. They come in, they send these guys in here, They did drag this one out. There are only 38 people in this unit. They were the production. They don't do news. They don't have a newscast. But in all the stations, we got them all. We won the election by a pretty good majority. We sat down to bargain with this snake. He kept us going. They broke every labor, we plastered their stations with unfair labor practices. And that's about the best you could do. Every time they do something, we file an unfair labor practice. He was proud of the unfair labor practices that we had plastered his station with. He would point to these unfair labor practices, saying, don't do this again. They'd be on the wall. He'd say, look at that, that's all they can do. That's the best they can do. Hey, bring it on. If that's all you can do is make us stick something up here after a year of litigation, or after years in some cases. If this is the best you can do, bring it on. And I'll keep treating these guys any way I want to. After 2 years, we could not get an agreement with these people, and there were only 3 employees left from the original unit. Everybody else had been fired or quit. And everybody else that had been hired in their place, of course, were hired under the caveat of bust this union. So we left. We walked away with, because we couldn't do it. We didn't have any support anymore. We had 3 people left out of 38 from the original unit. They sold a little shortly after that, but they told us that they were willing to bankrupt this company. One of the biggest problems I think that I'm running into here in Montana and in the country with this is this image of unions being some sort of third party. I'm running into here talking to people in Missoula, talking to people that work at the Missoulian. I work for the newspaper guild as part of the Communication Workers of America. I'm looking at all the enterprise. I'm looking at, but all the targets that are out there, the television stations. When there are people that are willing to die for this movement, and then you have people that aren't willing to show up for a meeting, you get frustrated sometimes. When I talk to some of these people, they will tell me things like, well, yeah, but if the union gets in here thinking that this union is something that's going to get in. They're looking at it already as this third party that's going to come. And employers, the union busters will tell the employers to use this, to do this, to help push this. They're a third party that is going to come between our families. This is a family that we have here. The management is just like your older siblings. And we're a family environment. And then now we're a team environment. And boy, don't become between me and my coach. Anyway, this is pushed, and he says, and we won't have the flexibility. That was one big one, that I was like, we won't, if the union gets in, we won't have any flexibility, that I won't be able to do the stuff I can do now. I won't be able to do it. And I hear this, and it's so patently absurd. What he's telling me, when I hear this is, all right, you're telling me that if you fight a little bit to get a voice in your workplace, that you guys are going to sit down and bargain a contract for less than you have now. That's what you're telling me you're going to do. You want to have less freedom than you have now. I said, why not throw in a wage cut while you're at it? You know, they'll welcome us with open arms if this is what you're willing to do. But that's the absurdity. But these are otherwise intelligent people who believe this, who just have this sense that this is what the union is going to do for them. It's going to be this third party that's going to come in there and it's going to make all these rules arbitrarily somehow, and it's just going to be worse. You know, it's just going to be awful. Plus, they're going to take my money to do this. They have no understanding, no basic understanding, and I don't know if it's apathy or ignorance, but some of the things that we're facing out here are tough. I wanted to tell my Monty story here. I put down here, I got a very good friend of mine. I was an outfitter up in the Gallon Canyon for a long time before I went back to school and got a degree and started into all this process. But he's an outfitter, a good Republican outfitter, a friend of mine. He visited me the other day. He was on his way up to the VA hospital. The man lives totally on Social Security, and he had these bumper stickers on the back of his trucks that said, Charlton Heston's my president, and the other one was a little George Bush sticker or something like that. And I looked at him and I said, you know, when you put an obscenity like that on your bumper sticker, what you are telling me is that, A, you don't want me to have a job. You would like to see me lose my job. You would like to see what I do be abolished in this country. That's what you would like by putting that bumper sticker on this car. That's what you're telling me. And not only do you want to see me lose my job, you don't want me to have any benefits after I lose a job. You don't want me to have unemployment. You don't want me to have Social Security, which you live on. But you're against big government because Social Security doesn't pay enough. Now this is the mindset. This is what we're faced here in Montana. I mean, this is, and it's like, and I tell him all this, and then he looks at me and he says, yeah, but the goddamn Democrats are going to take my guns away, you know. And I said, well, okay, what can we do about it? It's not rational, and you can bombard people with facts, you can show them, you can point to it, you can be logical, you can put big charts up for these people, and they're just not going to get it. And I don't know what to do about that. It gets real frustrating. But I'm digressing. There's a lot of talk about all our work going to slave babies in China, sweatshops in South America and Central America. This is another thing, that there is this idea here, well, as long as it's not happening in our country, then that's, this is just something we don't have to pay that much attention to. As long as it's not happening here, it's not happening right, we don't have that right here, so I wanted to talk just about a few instances because there are things happening here. In San Diego, outside of San Diego, on this side of the border, Nabisco has a plant. They hire mostly illegal aliens, but not all. In this plant, they allow 15 minutes, I think it was 15 minutes, it was cut to 5 to use the bathroom. Pretty soon they just don't want these people to use the bathroom anymore. They cut out bathroom breaks for 8-hour, 12-hour shifts. What they would do, out of the goodness of their heart, Nabisco, this good, wholesome American company, it would sell the people for $40 a bag of Depends to get them through the week. Now, the people and the workers at this Nabisco plant couldn't afford $40 for a bag of Depends, so they were stealing all the toilet paper out of the bathrooms and stuffing this in their pants, and they started getting bladder infections. That's just one. A friend of mine, good friend of mine, Rocky Clark, who is a wonderful organizer, my mentor in the IBEW, worked on a campaign in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It's called Eagle Pitcher. Eagle Pitcher is this company that builds batteries, custom batteries. It built batteries for the Apollo spacecrafts. It hires mostly Korean, but also some Vietnamese, people who cannot speak English. They bring them into these companies. They live 3 to 4 families in an apartment in Colorado Springs, our heartland. They test these people every 6 months for heavy metals. They work with cadmium, they work with all the metals that you make batteries with. They test them every 6 months because their statistics show them that when these heavy metals get to a certain level in their blood, they start to get sick. So when it says that this has gotten to this certain level, they fire them. And they just kick them out on the street. They can't speak English, and that's it. I mean, this is their policy. This is what's happening. I get calls in Montana from these telemarketing people. Talk about sweatshops. Same thing with the not letting them pee. I mean, they're calling me up from Billings. They say, hey, this outfit won't let me pee. You know, I got 15 minutes and I used it up, and they said they'll fire me if I go to the bathroom. They're almost impossible to organize. There's the turnover rate is so great that you can get one group organized and then they'll be gone. Or if they catch wind that there's an organizing campaign going on, they'll just shut down the warehouse, fire everybody, and start up someplace else. Now, these are in Missoula, these are Billings, these are in Helena, these are everywhere. Oh, okay. So anyway, I'll get on. These people have a problem with peeing for some reason. I really don't understand. In Kentucky, we're talking about some of the rules. I was on a campaign in Kentucky. When we think we have some sort of labor rights in this country, a lot of places we don't. They don't have the right to collectively bargain in Kentucky. It's against state law. Kentucky is a right-to-work state. They don't have it. We fought to bring in the public employees in Kentucky what they would get. The teachers' federations of different unions spent millions of dollars trying to organize these people and bring them in, and what they would get was a spot on the governor's advisory board, but the governor didn't have to listen to anybody on his advisory board. But that's what they were fighting for. And they're spending millions of dollars for that. I mean, and that to me is incredible. Then I went up to Minnesota, which is just the complete opposite of Kentucky. I mean, we have Senator Paul Wellstone up there. Well, the Greens are actually running somebody against Paul Wellstone, which is, I don't understand, but hey. They actually have, they manufacture there. They're a manufacturing plant that is still in the United States, bus manufacturers. It's wonderful to see. We won a big campaign there. It seems like the more somebody has to lose, the better paid they are, the better skilled they are, the easier they are to organize. I don't know why that is. You would think it would be the opposite. You would think that the less skilled, the ones that make the less money, that have less to lose. And then I tell these guys on TV stations, I said, hey, you know, you get fired, well, you go to work for Wendy's, double your pay. But no, I don't want to. I don't want to work at Wendy's, and that's why they stay in these jobs. I'm going to cut all this stuff out of here because I get to ranting too much. But there's something, I guess, there's something that we don't hear, and it's like preaching to the choir here probably. You know, the Republicans won't let me speak at their conventions. I don't know, you know, and that's where we should be speaking. I mean, that's who we should be talking to. These are the guys that we should be talking to. The guys with the bumper stickers. These are the ones we got to talk to. These are the ones we have to bring around somehow, you know. It seems like as an activist, a lot of us spend just a lot of time preaching to the choir. How we got to get it out there? Everybody has to organize. It's my belief that they're in control today in this country. Them, the right wing, is in control in this country, not because they're richer, not because they have more money, not because we're stupid and apathetic or crazy. You know, that is. I believe that they're in power because they're organized. And this is something that I tell people when I'm organizing them. I say, hey, you guys. They say, well, the company says the union's bad for us. Okay. How come they have a union? They're organized. The broadcasters, I was delivering some testimony for some broadcasters in the legislature a couple legislatures ago. And I brought out the Montana Broadcasters Association's book because it was a wonderful book, and their mission statement read just exactly like the union mission statement. I could take it and put it on my union logo's mission statement for my union, These were these broadcasters. It read that we will promote our values to the business community, governmental bodies, and general public. We will support our industry by providing services, information, and continuing education, recruitment, and a strong, unified voice, and to encourage membership participation in all levels. I mean, this could be the preamble for every union in the country. And this is a union. These associations are unions of employers. But the union would be bad for their employees. And they buy this stuff. I don't know why they buy this stuff. I got up to the mic when I was testifying for this, and I read this, and said they're a union. And I sat down, and their mouthpiece came up, the broadcasters, and he said, all I want to say is that we're not a goddamn union, and sat down. And I got a chance to rebut, and I said, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. I work for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and which obviously is not a union either, it's a brotherhood. And I sat down, and this went back and forth, but they won. I mean, I was in there testifying for a right to organize legislation that I knew was going to fail. Anyway, but you have to stand up. We knew it was going to fail. I mean, you looked at the makeup of the committee, and you knew we weren't going to get it. We weren't going to get anything we wanted. But we stood up there and we demanded it anyway, because what else are you going to do? I'm a fifth generation Montanan. For some reason, I've lived in Washington, D.C., I've lived in California, I've lived in these big cesspool cities. For whatever reason, I don't feel very comfortable anywhere but Montana, so I had to come to the realization late in life that I'm stuck here. When I graduated from the University of Montana, they told me, of course you're going to have to leave the state if you want to make any money. I wish they would stop telling people that, but they are still telling their students this. They are telling them, of course, you'll get good experience here, but you can't need experience, but you're going to have to go out and make your million, and then if you're lucky, you can retire in Montana and have to make a big pot in some cesspool. And that's what they told me, and I tried that. And I made more money, and I came back. And I went somewhere else to make money, and I came back. And finally I said, I got to fight here, and I wish they would start telling people that, hey, you can make a living wage in Montana if you're willing to stand up and demand a living wage in Montana. If you get rid of this bumper sticker mentality that we're dealing with in Montana, that could be tough. It may never happen. I grew up here, man. I got a lot of guns and stuff like that, too. I understand these people. I grew up in a big Republican family. I got a lot of brothers. We all turned out like me for some reason, so maybe that tells you something. I mean, but anyway, they're winning because they're organized, and I think it's time that we started taking a look at some of their practices, and started following their lead and getting organized. I mean, that seems to be the key here, And I'm going to go after these newspaper guys in this town, and I'm going to keep talking and harassing these reporters. And I'm going to try to get it through that I am the big labor boss for CWA in Montana. This is it. I'm in. I'm going to come in and tell you just exactly how you're going to have to run everything. This is not the way it works. We have the resources to help you organize, and we will do it. I mean, that's the way it's going to work. You will form your own union. Your own local. There is not a CWA local here. Whoever's first, come on, step right up. You can form your own local. It's going to be yours top to bottom. This is not some third party coming in there to dictate terms. The wonderful thing about a union is they don't take any dues until you get a contract. And I say, man, when you get a contract, just make sure you get enough of a raise to make the dues to wash. Because they will try to make a lot of hay out of dues. I say, well, make sure, don't vote for a contract that doesn't pay your dues. And more. I hope I've taken away some of their arguments, but it's a continuing battle, and these are the arguments we keep coming up with, because these union busters come out of the same factory. They've got one little narrow-minded factory that sends out all this union busting material. You see the same crap everywhere you go around the country. It's all the same. There's nothing original about it, but it works. Because people don't stop to even think about it. I mean, that's the problem. They don't even, you gotta stop them long enough to get them to see how crazy it is. To see the lies that they're telling them. And that's the struggle. So anyway, thank you.
I also also want to say gracias to our translator, Bettina Escudero. And I'd like to thank all the speakers. There is a follow-up to this, and I would very strongly encourage you to come. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. We have a few more comments here. Jose Luis has some pictures from, I saw a few of them from his union's office, what's happened there in the last 10 years or so. And I also want to strongly encourage you, I want to hand this over actually in just a jiffy. I also want to strongly encourage you to come to a workshop which happens at 3:15 to 5 o'clock this afternoon in the Liberal Arts Building, room 305, and it's back that way to the west. And these three folks will be here, and the topic of that workshop is building international alliances. And this is where we can maybe, you can ask questions and we can start talking about, what it would take to start building international alliances. So I think that would be very interesting. And I'll just make two brief announcements before I hand over this microphone to Bettina. There is a Women in Black demonstration happening again today at 12:15 right now, as soon as this is over, on the Higgins Street Bridge. And this is a weekly demonstration for peace. And it's in solidarity with Women in Black demonstrations all over the world. And also today around 5 p.m., add to your list of videos that are being broadcast in the University Center Theater, which is right next door over here. Walden Bello, tonight's keynote speaker, has brought with him a video called The Next Afghanistan, and it's about his trip to the Philippines. And I think that will be very timely and very interesting. And thank you very much. I'll give this to Bettina Escudero, who would like to speak a little bit about Mexico.
I just want to say one thing, and that is to bring to your awareness the Puebla-Panama plan, which is part of this NAFTA thing. And it wants, and it's already started to make a Maquila corridor from Mexico City, a little bit east of Mexico City, all the way down to Panama. And that would include exploiting the natural resources, destroying indigenous villages, displacing people, and creating what Wilfredo was talking about, a corridor of displaced people to be able to hire in these maquila plants. They are planning to build 700 dams for electrical power to be able to send to the United States. They're going to start in Mexico and then Nicaragua. But it's part of all of this corporate military globalization that's going on. There is a website called Acerca, ACERCA.org or .com, I can't remember, where you can get more information on this. But it's basically what Wilfredo is talking about in El Salvador, going on already planned. Citibank just bought up the second biggest bank in Mexico, Banamex. And the World Bank, the IMF, Citicorp, all of these people are funding these projects. Presidente Fox, the Coca-Cola president that we have right now in Mexico, gave an announcement. He was very proud just a couple of weeks ago, saying that Mexico could now compete with the cheapest labor in the world. And so it's getting closer and closer to the border. I mean, this stuff is happening everywhere. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.